There's a moment in every researcher's journey when the noise finally quiets down. The confusion fades. Suddenly, things start to make sense. The data lines up. The argument becomes clear. The code works. And for the first time, the whole paper actually fits together. That moment is why we do research in the first place. I'm a physical therapy student, and I know that frustration when you've read so much, but your literature review still doesn't feel clear. In physical therapy, precision matters. You can't just guess. You need evidence you can trace back, save properly, and pull up fast when it's time to write. When you finally reach that clarity, it feels incredibly satisfying. It's that moment of insight, that quiet excitement when everything clicks. It's like you can finally exhale after a long, exhausting stretch of trying to make sense of scattered data and competing ideas. And it doesn't matter whether you're working in the humanities or deep in the hard sciences. Every researcher experiences this same arc. Today, I want to walk you through a simple 3-step framework that helps you reach that moment faster. That moment when the structure of your paper reveals itself and everything suddenly snaps into place. This framework actually came out of a workshop we ran this week with researchers in our inner circle, an advanced mentorship group where we work closely on real research problems. During that session, I used to work on paper and feel lost in the details. I was buried in information, overwhelmed by specifics, and struggling to see the big picture or even the core research question. But once we applied these 3 steps, something shifted. The structure became clear. That moment never gets old for me. I get to experience it again and again through the researchers I work with. And now, I want to show you how you can create that same click for yourself. Let's dive in. The first powerful move you can make to tilt the odds in your favor is to slow down and deliberately look for structure. Structure is the natural order hidden inside your data. It is the order your paper will eventually follow. There is rarely only one possible structure, but there is usually one that feels right, one that fits the data more naturally than the others. Your job as a researcher is to find that fit. There are several common ways structure reveals itself. Sometimes you are taking the same reality and slicing it from different angles. You might use different methods, tools, or perspectives to look at the same problem. Each angle shows you something slightly different. When you do this, one view usually starts to feel clearer than the rest. Other times, the signal you are looking for is quiet, almost like a whisper in the data, and it is hard to hear unless you change how you are listening. This is why it is so important to map out your data before you commit to writing. You need to experience multiple possible structures first. A very common mistake I see is researchers trying to figure out their analysis while writing the paper at the same time. When that happens, the writing becomes a struggle because it is being used to search for clarity instead of communicate it. That is not wrong, but you need to be honest about what you are doing. Early writing can be messy and disposable. Its purpose is exploration, not the final draft. Finding structure is also why I always recommend understanding the narrative arc of your paper before you start writing seriously. Natural structure often comes from testing your hypothesis or staying tightly focused on your research question. Sometimes it comes from organizing by outcomes. If you use a framework like the PICO model, population, intervention, comparison, and outcome, those elements can also act as clean slices through your data. They help you perturb the mess just enough to reveal insight. In quantitative research, structure often follows the identification strategy used to uncover causal relationships. In qualitative work, structure usually emerges as narrative logic or recurring themes from interviews. For literature reviews, structure often follows a conceptual map. These are not rigid rules, but guiding shapes. Your real task is discovery, finding the structure that turns disorder into clarity and lowers the entropy in your data. Step 2 is where you have to become ruthless, and I mean that in the best possible way. This step is all about staying focused on your research question. As researchers, we are naturally curious people. We love exploring ideas, following interesting signals, and chasing patterns wherever they appear. It is very easy to go down a rabbit hole, jumping from one idea to the next, like squirrels running after acorns in every direction. But by the end of your project, your paper should not look like that. Your final structure should look clean and linear, even if the path you took to get there was messy and complex. Out of that spaghetti path, you need to arrive at clarity. The best way to do that is to stay relentlessly focused on your main research question. At every stage, you should ask yourself a simple but powerful question. Is the analysis I am doing right now directly helping me answer my research question? If the answer is yes, keep going. If the answer is no, it may still be interesting, and it might even lead to future papers, but it does not belong in this one. This is where good scientific practice really matters. There is a temptation, especially in quantitative work, to play with numbers until something looks interesting, and then build a story around it. That approach creates noise, not knowledge. It produces results that are hard to reproduce and adds confusion to the literature. When you do this, something powerful happens. Your structure tightens. Your argument becomes clearer. Your data starts to serve the question instead of pulling you in random directions. This is the moment when you feel that true click, when everything begins to fall into place and your research finally delivers a clear and satisfying answer. This discipline creates clarity. Now, my third tip is to build structure directly into your analysis from the very beginning, instead of trying to force it later when everything already feels messy. One powerful way to do this is by using something called a DAG, a directed acyclic graph. At its core, this is simply a logic model. It forces you to be explicit about the causal pathways you are trying to examine and makes your thinking visible. I often see researchers tracing long chains like X leads to Y, which leads to Z, which then leads to A, B, and C. The problem is that this quickly becomes unfocused and overwhelming. In many cases, the real work is not adding more links, but pruning the chain. You need to cut it back to the relationships that truly matter if you want the structure of the paper to emerge. Doing this kind of pruning helps you clarify both your analysis and your core research question. It keeps you disciplined and focused, and that focus feeds back into every step that comes before. Many literature reviews fall apart because people follow every possible path in the literature and lose sight of what they are actually trying to answer. A DAG helps you decide where to stop. You might keep one branch of the causal logic and drop another. Those choices naturally become sections in your paper and create a clear conceptual flow from start to finish. Once that structure is in place, something interesting happens. Insights begin to surface on their own. Order starts to emerge from what once felt like chaos. This is one of the most satisfying moments in research. I encourage every researcher to build these diagrams, no matter their field. A DAG is not just a tool for causal analysis. It is a tool for clarity. No single technique guarantees that moment when everything clicks, but finding the structure, staying focused, and containing the scope of your project makes that moment far more likely and much faster. Suddenly, the work feels lighter, not heavy, and everything finally fits. If you're serious about getting to that moment where everything finally clicks, I'd love to help you get there faster. You can click the link below and book a relaxed, no-pressure one-to-one call with me or someone from our team. We'll talk through where you are right now, what you're trying to publish, and see if working together actually makes sense for you. No sales pitch, just a real conversation focused on your goals. And before you go, don't miss the next video on the channel. I break down some of our best publishing strategy tips and tactics, the kind of things that can save you months of trial and error and help you avoid mistakes that hold a lot of people back. If this video helped you, that one will take things even further. I'll see you there.